You're listening to BYU-Idaho Radio. I'm Nathan Lenahan, and today I'm joined by Jay and Karina Osmond. Guys, thank you so much for calling in today.
You bet. It's nice to visit with you.
Would you just mind giving us just a brief background on yourselves for, of course, anyone who wouldn't know?
Basically, my background has been with the Osmond family for over 60 years in show business, and I've spent my life in show business, and that's why I love radio so much, because music has been such a big part of my life. And my sweet wife Karina has always loved music, and she is such a big integral part of what we're doing up here in the radio.
And we both have background and a lot of heritage in Idaho. Jay's mom was born in Malad. My grandma was born in Rockland, and Jay's grandpa was born in Star Valley,
Star
right?
Valley, Wyoming. That's
and
exactly.
We lived up here the first few months of our marriage, and so we just are back full circle now.
Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. And it's almost like salmon, you're coming back home,
Yeah, there you go.
I forgot. I wanted to give you a bit of background on myself very briefly. We actually met 16 years ago.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah. I'm from Malad, Idaho. And so 16 years ago in 2010, when most of your family went there to your mother's restored cabin, I was there for that. And my mom interpreted. She's a sign language interpreter, and she interpreted there for Tom and Burl.
My brother Burl and Tom.
Yeah.
I heaven's sake. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, my mother's from a lot. I love that little area, and we have so many happy memories about that place. That's so cool.
And do you know what? It's like Jay and I know that when Jay's mom lived there and her parents, my grandma lived in Rockland, and we always make a joke about how, that Donnie and Marie song, The Other Side of the Mountain. Mm-hmm. How, my heritage was just over the mountain from Jay's heritage.
Yeah. It's amazing how Karina and I met, and our background is really amazing. But gosh, it's so cool. Life is amazing to me, where it's such a small world.
Yeah, it really is.
Meeting a lot of people, especially up in this area, where we have such history with, our family backgrounds and everything. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. And
that's cool, buddy.
I thought that was quite interesting. Once you guys responded for the interview, I thought, boy, I'll have to tell him this, that we've met a long time ago.
That is real cool.
Before we get into just like the modern stuff you guys are doing now, I hope you wouldn't mind if I just ask a couple questions about the Osmond era, because I'm personally a big fan of the pop culture of that era of the 70s, especially the music and all of that.
Wonderful. Yeah, we'd love to chat with you about that.
So first off, I was just wondering, how did you end up on drums? Because I'm a drummer myself, and I just...
Are you?
Yeah, I love playing the drums, and so I'm wondering how you ended up on drums in the band.
Well, way back when my brothers and I were doing the Andy Williams show way back in the 60s, we did something every week that was different, and that was what we called the one-take Osmonds. We had to come up with something, whether it's... whatever, playing pianos or saxophones. And one week we were doing a Beatles medley back in '64, and we decided, well, who was going to play the drums and the guitar and bass, So I gravitated to rhythm, and as a kid, as a little kid, and I bang on pots and pans, and I says, let me play the drums. I was only 8 years old, but so I ended up playing drums. I had to learn drums and play a solo in 1 week on the Andy Williams show. It was like scary for me. I was only 8 years, and I was like drums by fire. I mean, it was like, jumping the frying pan, but that's where I learned to love it. It was just, and I've stuck with it for 60 years now. I love it.
Wow.
That's quite impressive.
You know what? Jay's got some really cool stories about who he got to like learn from. Like, he had some of the best mentors in the whole business.
Well, my first drum teacher was Jimmy Gordon, who played, the song Imagine with John Lennon.
Of course.
Do you know who that is? Jimmy Gordon?
Yeah, and he played, Derek and the Dominoes.
Yeah.
And he was really great. My second drum teacher was Ronnie Tutt, and he was Elvis's drummer. so that's how we got to know Elvis a little bit through there. And I didn't know if you know, but do you ever watch the Muppets as a kid?
I did watch some of them on VHS back in the day, but never the TV show.
Okay, well, Animal, the guy, where Jim Henson was a
Hmm.
big Ronnie Tutt fan, and he coined the Animal character after Ronnie Tutt. A lot of people didn't know that,
Oh,
and
wow.
so yeah, but he was my second drum teacher, and I learned a lot from him, and it was
And
just wonderful.
and you used to rep for which drum?
Oh, I was a representative for Ludwig drums with
Oh, wow.
Karen Carpenter and Hal
Hmm.
Blaine. Hal Blaine was with the
Wrecking Crew?
with the Wrecking Crew. He was a great drummer, and Karen Carpenter, of course, was a really good drummer, and she and I represented Ludwig drums way back in early '70s.
Wow. That's
Yeah, we
that's
just
quite impressive. Of those other people, you've had a lot of influences and stuff. What drummers would you say influenced you in your playing the most, in addition to the people you already told me about?
well, I think another drummer had a major influence was John Bonham.
Mm.
Back in the '70s when we were back at a place called Earl's Court. It was in London, and it was we were performing there, and our sound people were called the Clare Brothers. That was the name of the company that did our sound equipment. They also did Led Zeppelin's sound equipment, and they set up for Led Zeppelin, and Led Zeppelin was at Earl's Court a day before we were. And our sound people at Claire said, how would you like to go meet Led Zeppelin? I said, are you kidding? I'm such a big fan. So we went over to their sound check, their sound rehearsal, the day before our show, and we got to meet them. And we became friends. And John brought his little kids and his sister to meet us. It was really ironic because Robert Plant said, hey, you know what? He says, we sometimes love to bring people up on stage. Would you guys like to come up on stage to do a number with us? I
Wow.
said, we have a different audience, I think, right now, because way back in the '70s, our audiences were more like teeny boppers,
Hmm.
that kind of age. And of course, theirs was, a lot older. And I thought, well, Robert will just, forget what he just said. But no, he remembered at the end of their show, when we went to go see their show, he says, we'd like to bring up the Osmond Brothers, our new friends. And so, I mean, and I'll never forget going up on stage and feeling a little, unsure of what we're going to do. And he said, just grab some instruments and all that. And John said, get on this conga here. And so
Mm.
I get up to the congas, and we played Stairway to Heaven with him, with Led Zeppelin. I'll never forget that feeling of playing not only with the greatest band I think there was, but to see all that hair out there flying
Yeah,
around. Oh, it just shocked me. It was amazing.
that's crazy just to hear that.
Now, Greg Bissonette, also who plays for Ringo, his current
Ooh.
drummer with Ringo, is also a really good friend of mine,
Yeah,
and
you guys
probably
talk on the phone a lot.
Greg is probably the best drummer I've ever met. And also, John Cowsill, who played with the Beach Boys, is also a great friend and an amazing drummer. So those guys have had some great impact on my life
Wow. Yeah, that is crazy.
as a drummer.
These are all artists that I grew up listening to and still listen to. So that's just really
Mhm.
crazy to hear about. I'm a big fan of Ringo, seen him in concert and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, he's a actually great entertainer.
He is.
Now, you know what, Jay? There was a story you were telling me about before. Which one of the drum instructors or those mentors you had were
Mhm.
telling you to just be you and to not try to copy anybody, but just do you?
Oh, good point. Yes, I remember it was Jimmy Gordon, and I went up to Jimmy. I was only a young teenager guy, and I said, I want to be just like you. I said, you are an amazing drummer. And he looks at me like I was crazy, and he said, Jay, he said, really? He says, you have a style of your own, and I love your style. He says, I can't be like you, and you can't be like me, but you can learn from me, and you can learn from other great drummers. but don't try to be me. And he says, just be yourself, find your own style. And I thought that had such an impact on me. And so I from that day on, I just learned from the best of the best drummers. And then I created my own style. When I play drums or do my drum solo, I've incorporated not only my own feeling and my own style, but others. Like there's a part of my drum solo that has the Ringo style in it, that has Jimmy Gordon style, that has Ronnie Tutt style. But most importantly, I've incorporated it and developed my own style. And I thought that was great advice, great advice.
Yeah, definitely. And so you still play pretty frequently then?
I do. I actually still play a lot, and I love it. It's just not only therapy, but it's just fun. And I did a little bit of a video. I'm going to send it out one of these days. I did a lot of research on how drumming is therapeutic for the brain, and how it keeps your thoughts and it coordinates the synapse, and it's just really good for people in your thoughts and your overall mental health. And especially if you're a double bass drummer. Do you play double bass?
Oh no, I can't afford a double bass pedal.
Well, I'm telling you, if you pick up a double bass pedal, a used one, and practice using the double bass, you watch what it does to you. It's just something very therapeutic. I recommend it highly.
I'll definitely consider that. But no, I can understand what you're saying with playing the drums and just how relaxing it is. It's a great feeling.
Great relaxing and therapeutic and a lot of fun.
Yeah. And you two said that there was a very interesting way in how you met. So could you expand on that and tell us about that?
Oh, wow. I'll let my sweet wife tell it. She tells it much better than I do.
Oh, goodness. I'll give you the abbreviated version.
Of course.
Because those things are real long and drawn out. But we've been married 12 years, almost 12 years. And we both had really long and rocky first marriages. But when Jay had been single about 4 years when we met. I was only single about 2 months. And I realized really quickly, I moved back down to Arizona, and where my family was from, and I had relatives and stuff. And I started working for Sotheby's in Scottsdale, and I was just kind of plugging away. And I got the lay of the land and realized the only way that people are meeting is through some of the online, dating stuff, because I was 50, right? And I'm like, okay, how do you meet people, and even people in the church and whatever. So I went onto this LDS Planet, which was the big one at the time. And to be able to even look at the site, I wasn't excited about it, but to be able to look at the site, you had to at least put your credit card, but don't push start, and put at least a picture and like a sentence. And then you could at least look at the site and decide if you wanted to join. So I try to find the only picture I can find that doesn't have me and my ex-spouse in it. And, we're actually got ready to go somewhere. So it was one that I was going to, my niece and nephew who were 18 were cheering me up and taking me to a concert of a new band. It was going in Phoenix. And there were only 200 people. They were so new. And they wanted to get a picture with the guys. There was 2 guys in the band afterwards. So that picture was the one I put on LDS Planet as my profile picture. But it cut off Scott and Holly on the left and the right, because it was a vertical picture instead of horizontal. Well, that was fast forward, that was 21 Pilots. And I don't know what Jay was thinking, because I'm standing there with the 2 guys from 21 Pilots, and he has no idea who they are. They've got the gauges and all of the tattoos and all that. But Jay, being from Hollywood, I think it didn't rock him. And
I just read her profile. It was so wonderful. I go, I'm not going to let that picture shock me.
We met the guy that owned that dating site a few years ago, and he said, I actually did that on purpose. What he did was once I put all that stuff in there, I left the house and left my computer open. And he had it to where if you sat there dormant for 45 minutes, it would accidentally start you on your membership. So I left the house for like 2 hours and came back, and Jay had found me just by he was going to go down to Arizona and visit his son that was there temporarily, and he had to put a zip code in, so he just picked one, and it was mine, and sent me a message, and we ended up being married 2 monto later.
Oh yeah,
wow.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Well, when I first met her, I go, wow, I've got to get to know this beautiful girl, and it was so worth it.
When you
so
know,
wonderful.
you know.
Yeah, it's so true.
And we haven't, like, our feet haven't hit the ground. Like, we just fell in love so deeply and so quickly, and he was just like, you know what, if we're going to get married, I'm about to do an arena tour in the UK, and you could go as my wife, and we could have so much fun. If we're going to do it, let's just do it now. And I'm like, okay. So we just kind of like took off, and like I said, it's like our feet weren't on the ground. We were in heaven the first, year or two, just not even dealing with reality.
Oh, I know, it was funny.
And now, of course, we're deeply in love, and you start out with that amazing, euphoric feeling, and then life hits you, and it's fun to still be in love, still, like, I want to hold his hand everywhere and just go and explore and conquer the world.
Well, when you find the right one, and I know a lot of people up in Idaho and at BYU-I are looking for the right person and everything. And I just think if you look for a companion, that someone who really thinks like you do or wants the same things that you do, and if you can really coordinate that, boy, it saves a lot of time in the future, because finding that right companion is so important. And
Sure is.
it really is.
When it goes wrong, it goes
really wrong. It could go wrong,
right.
And but that's a real key, I think, to look for the right things, and to a friendship. Starting a friendship is a really, really an important element.
Of course.
About that.
Yeah, and now you two are doing a radio show together. What's your show about?
Well, we talk about, not just talk about, but we have stories all about the classic hits, people who grew up in the 70s and 80s. It just, the music of that period of time, which is 70s is for me, 80s is for my wife. But we talk about those stories, and we make it fun. We try to make it fun, and music is, it transcends language. It's just a wonderful 4 hours every day, Monday through Friday, that we enjoy just talking about the music and listening to it, and then, and it's just a big bright spot every day for us.
That's great, because that, like I said earlier, that era of music, that's the stuff that I really love, that I grew up listening to, and that I still listen to. So
yeah, isn't it great? The music
yeah.
of the 70s and 80s is our favorite, and that's why we wanted to do this.
I feel like the 70s was like the renaissance of music, like, Michelangelo and all that was with art. And maybe I'm just biased, but that was like right before a lot of the, the techno and the man-made music stuff came in and all that. It was such a wonderful era of music. And it's just so fun to be able to, listen to that every day and be part of that whole scene here.
And being in radio, like I'm sure you understand, is a great media, and it just, people want to have a closeness. There's something about radio that brings that closeness to, especially when you get on like what you're doing, you're talking to that person. You're not
intimate.
Intimate. Just, that's the word I was looking for. It's not like you're talking, even though you're talking to the masses, it's like you're talking to one person.
Right.
Or you're playing music for another person. It's so intimate. And I love this medium. That's why we wanted to just do this, because it's, not just because of our history, but because we love it so much.
Of course. And Jay and Karina, thank you guys so much for calling in and just telling us about all this today.
And I wish you all the best in your radio career. You sound like you've got a good handle on it.
Yeah.